The question is, French is known to be looking for a new home within the continent because they've lost their camp from the west. Now they've come down to the east. And in all rights or manners of them having to do that, as they should because they're in trade to protect their interest, then there's nothing wrong with them coming to the East African part of the continent. However, the question is, and this, I guess this is what Kenyans are struggling to understand, is that much has been promised, 100-something billion. We still do trade with France, we export maybe 16 billion, but we import around 30 billion. It's an imbalance, but that is fine. But the ultimate question is, the countries where the French is living or has left are not more developed than Kenya. To the extent we would say we welcome them because we can see what they have done in Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, and many other places. So why Kenya now? Knowing that, yes, we are the hub of Africa. We know we are trying, as you rightly say, to unshackle ourselves from the colonial systems that have continued to extract and exploit the continent. And if Kenya is seen as forward-looking, hence I guess the name, the Forward Summit, is it the right move for us to make? Are we setting the correct precedent for the rest of the African countries in terms of trying to liberate ourselves economically and also politically? What do you feel about them coming to East Africa, having lost their home in the West African part of the continent, and now they have not left them any better? If I spoke to the youth of the Burkinabes, I'm sure the youth programs that were spelled out 10, 20 years ago have not benefited them, because we would know, as you rightly say, we live in a global village. You can easily tell. We can ask even them now, and they'll tell us. So who is fooling who?
I think there were two people who are looking for homes in this summit. One, definitely the French are looking for a home from moving from West Africa now to East Africa. And then the other person looking for a home is William Ruto, once we chase him out of power in 2027, if he does make it that far. And when you are saying that we have an imbalance of trade between France and Kenya, they are looking to expand the Mombasa port, as my colleague Kasmuel here rightly puts it. And from that 100 billion you're talking about, if that port is expanded, it's going to go to 200 million, double, billion. Triple. The number is speculative. And for Kenya, maybe slightly higher. But what are we exactly importing to this nation from France? We are importing, fancy suits, big ties, and heavy perfumes. Like my colleague Kasmuel here is a heavy consumer, and I find
Britain.
that is...
He specifies British.
Point of correction.
He's definitely interested in ensuring that Mombasa port is expanded. And when we look at the West African nations and their democratic ideals, and when Kasmuel talks about I should be excited that there will be some billions going to expanding the engineering wing in the University of Nairobi, and the youth of Burkina Faso will tell me, Angel, hizo stories are jaba. We have not had progressive education in our nations from our partnership with the French. And I think in my earlier years, I worked with the All Africa Students Union, and the headquarters are based in Accra, Ghana, and I worked there for a period of 3 years. So I had the privilege of working in a West African country, that is Ghana, and also touring the West African neighbors of Ghana. And I have been to Benin, I have been to Togo, I have been to Burkina Faso, that area around West Africa, and I have seen it for myself firsthand how dilapidated their capital cities are, even leave alone their villages. Everyone's dream is to work hard, get a visa, and go to Paris. That can't be what our nation and our continent is about. And I'd like to apologize to the youth of West Africa on behalf of Kasmuel, because his thinking is wanting. And he does not stand with the ideals of our generation, and it is very sad. When I talk to the West African youth, and they tell me that their reserves are still based in France, well, we are talking about the Central Bank of Kenya kind of model, but based in London. I mean, we would have to be working on a system that
it can be based in London, Angel.
that is based on our former colonial masters. That is exactly what is going on in West Africa. And the French think that they are becoming better, and they're saying that their reserves were 100% at some point. They went to 65 at some point. Now they're submitting 50% as we speak today, and that is the worst form of colonialism ever. And if I was, I didn't have the privilege of attending the summit in the University of Nairobi, but I would have been the first person to quiet down Macron and tell him to free West Africa. I think it's utterly brutal what they are doing to the West African nations, talking about countering terrorism. And in this age and decade, we know that when we talk about peace and security, big conferences across the continent and across the world, when you go into the issues about peace and security, they all boil down to the young people lacking opportunities, lack of employment, lack of spaces where they can freely express themselves. And when I'm sure when William Ruto saw Macron doing that, he was so excited to see him do that. And he admired him in totality, thinking how he can be him and even be better than him. So he should be celebrating. He has found a new home where he will reside in September 2027.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Kasmal, you look at it from a perspective that, yes, of course, commitments have been made.